So he saw a fish with some seaweed on his head and said, "That's a hot fish. I would fuck that fish."
Hey, you over there.
Yeah?
Guess what?
What?
You wanna talk spooky stuff?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kay.
And I am Gabe.
You're a ghoul.
Sure am.
Wow, same.
What brings you here next to me?
I'm kinda over humanity.
Yeah, people are trash.
Just like our bodies.
You know there's a lot to say about how media is made.
Like there's a more to every story.
Exactly. It's fascinating. We could make a show.
A show?
And we'll let everybody know. Use our brains.
Brains.
No, not to eat. To educate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess you could say we're the ghouls next
door. Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're
the ghouls next door. Or the mermaids next door.
Yeah, you know, because why not?
Because we should be.
Yeah, I feel strongly I want to look like this at all times, even if it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, we look like mermaids. And honestly, I think everyone should be a mermaid. I was like, when I was doing this makeup, I was like, I am a mermaid. One, I am a Polish mermaid, which is the film we're talking about. The lore features Polish mermaids. And I was like, I am.
Yeah, I'm also Polish, so sure.
Woo,
yeah,
yeah.
Me too.
I'm very Polish.
I'm pretty sure that's what my ancestry John said.
I'm like 70%.
Okay, it's not that much. You're very Polish. You are more Polish than I am.
I mean, one of my last names is Rosinski.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's hard to like argue that you're not that when that's your last name.
Mine
It's the same thing.
so
Like it's hard
many.
to argue I'm not Hispanic if I have Castro.
Yeah. Mine was too many. Like, it was, like, small percentages. I didn't get, like, any big percentages. It was, like, you're a little Jewish, you're a little Scottish, you're a little bunch of things. But I think Polish was on there. I'm looking now. I was European Jewish. And within my European Jewish time was in Poland. So,
Yes, I'm very all those things. But my grandfather is Polish. He is the Rosinski.
Nice.
So that it's fun. And this is a really fun musical. I'm so glad that we did it. It was part of the reason why I wanted to do a horror movie musicals series.
fair enough.
Because I was like, they sound really cool. So I want to watch this film. And I'm really glad I did. It is quite a wide ride. But I also just really love like real portrayals of mermaids or sirens or monstrous women creatures. Love them.
Well, yeah, because they're doing the murdering that we wish we could do every day.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
I don't actually want to murder people, but...
Yeah. I think they're also just like being themselves and being very true to that. And there's like a power that they're like grappling with that's like way more intense than what humans are doing.
Yeah.
Like anytime there's like monstrous femme, it's always interesting. Like when we covered Jennifer's Body. And I think like we should definitely in the future have like a monstrous femme series where we can cover like werewolves and vampires and succubus again, and maybe, you know, a different type of mermaid. But I'm glad we did this one for now, because it's great.
Yeah, it was very fun. It was wild and weird as hell, but very fun.
Yeah. I tried to explain this film to a few people, and every time it just sounds made up. It sounds made up. They're like, it's what now? And I'm like, also they sing. They're eating people.
Yeah,
Kind of
a little bit of everything for everybody. You know? It really appeals to a wide audience. You want some murder. You want some fish people. You want some singing.
Yeah, you want some... Yeah, I can't speak
I'm
Polish.
offbeat, but it's fine.
So I can't speak Polish, so I won't be singing the songs today. But I'll tell you the translated lyrics.
Yeah.
But they don't work in the song.
I'm excited either way.
we'll play some of the songs, so you
Yeah.
get a little clip, because I think they're really cool. But I don't know. Shall we get it? Shall we do it?
Yeah, do it to it, man.
Heck yes. Hi. We're going to be talking about The Lure, which is from 2015, and it is about, in Warsaw, a pair of mermaid sisters are adopted into a cabaret. While one seeks love with humans, the other hungers to dine on the human population of the city, and is directed by, I looked up how to say this, so I really hope I do a good job, Agnieszka Smoczyńska.
Nice.
I hope I did it. Because again, I don't speak English. So this film, very interesting. Like you said, takes on a lot of forms, and I'm going to do my best to analyze it in the way that we do. So one is silver, and the other is golden. The Lure is the mermaid monster Polish horror movie musical you didn't know you needed. I didn't know I needed. I'm so glad I have it. As I said before, I tried to explain this film to a few people since I've watched it, and I just fail to find the words. Like, I'm all over the place, even writing this. Like, I was like, what am I doing? It sounds like I'm making it up. Because it's just like, wait, what? There's this too, and that's happening? And it's like, yeah. All of that is true. There are many layers to this beautiful blue-tinted world that Smoczyńska creates. But on the surface is a tale of two types of women. The lover and the monster. Pretty much. Which I found very interesting and immediately was like, this movie is for me. I'm in love. It's genre-bending with, like, you know, because it is horror. There's a lot of grotesque things, but it's also like coming of age and like drama and romance. But it features folklore, puberty, 70s pop music, and incredible violence. Yeah. The idea actually started as a film about sisters who grew up in a nightclub scene, and it was based on the writer Robert Bolesto's friends whose parents worked in clubs, and so they grew up in club. So he was like, let's make this film about it. And after they were told the film was too personal, Agnieszka decided to weave in Hans Christen-Andersen's tale of the Little Mermaid. And according to lore in Warsaw, there are two mermaid twin sisters. One that decided to swim off to Copenhagen, which is the Little Mermaid story that we know about, and the other found her way to the little village that would become Warsaw, and is featured as like a statue to commemorate her in the middle of their town, and all throughout Poland too are mermaid statues because they value them as being creatures that saved them to some degree, and you know, protects them because she's like in warrior garb. It's like pretty cool.
They're powerful.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's like to think the difference between like what happened to the sister and then this like warrior Warsaw mermaid is very interesting. And it's definitely like exactly what this film is trying to accomplish. As with most monstrous films, the lore explores what it means to be a girl, ultimately. The challenges that come with our growing bodies and their dichotomous nature, right? So you have the grotesque and the frightening, the powerful and alluring, the vulnerability and the you know, the just the pure power of all of that. It's like it's amazing. In an article on Vice titled "New Polish Cannibal Mermaid Musical" is a story about immigration and girlhood by Judy Berman. They interview Agnieszka about her influences and themes, and Agnieszka says, "It's a visualization of the initiation into womanhood. Growing up is brutal, especially as a girl. It's like death. You can treat the whole story as a metaphor for growing up. On the physical side, you have this mucus, you have this blood, you have this fishtail. The tail is something you want to hide, but it's something that defines your youth. When you want to be loved by a boy or by a human being, you lose yourself. You cut off your fishtail. And you conform." I will say that they're not cannibals because they're mermaids. Yeah. Not people. Yep. So they can't eat. They're not eating other mermaids. Yeah. So yeah. But they are like, I mean, they're eating people. So that is happening. The film starts with these sirens in the ocean, and Silver is interested in a boy who's singing on a beach. And she and Golden sing back and make their way to the shore. And then next we see a club owner who is trying to investigate where a fishy smell is coming from in his place of business. And it leads him to discover the girls who are childlike and full of joy dancing in the back room, wearing just like a jacket, like someone's business suit jacket. They are immediately stripped and revealed to be like Barbies. Completely smooth down there.
Yeah.
Just nothing. You turn them around, nothing again.
Yeah.
Nothing for you to do. No genitalia. However, when you splash some water on them, their tails grow back. And on those tails, they have slits that men in this film just love touching.
Yep.
Yeah, I also vomited in my mouth a little.
Yeah.
Because it's gross.
Yeah.
The tails are really impressive and possibly my favorite part of the film. They're actually practical pieces. They're huge. They're so long. They're practical pieces that are operated by the actors using a foot pedal inside. So that they'll like kind of move like a little more naturally. But they're huge and it's kind of, it's like they're not doing a lot in there. But I thought that was really cool. And the actresses spent weeks alone with Agnieszka to work through their emotions and to operate the tails. They had to think of like, what is it like to be inhuman and to be a girl who's freshly in this man's world and to really become who they are, but also like how to be mermaids. Like, who are they?
Yeah.
What do they do? Golden and Silver communicate using an eerie dolphin chirping telekinesis kind of thing. And in their covert communications, Golden explains they're just visiting here before they make their way to America. She's like, this is just a pit stop, and then we're going to go. We're going to make our way out of here, make our way downtown. Swim in fast, because we don't walk. She also warns Silver not to fall in love with a man, lest he marry another and turn her into sea foam. Which sounds very familiar. Because Golden's pretty much like, what if you fall in love with that dude that you keep looking at? And she's like, no.
Yeah, I won't.
Shut up. Did he say something, though? Like, did he mention me? Like, was he like that? Is that mermaid particularly hot? Or for any of us folklore nerds, that sounds an awful lot like Hans Christen-Andersen's Little Mermaid, who suffers a similar fate. Even worse in the folklore is that she becomes wind that must cool off men. And in one place I read, her sentence gets extended every time children are naughty. So she's just been winds catering to men for forever.
Yeah, that's wild.
I'd rather be sea foam. I'd rather be foam. With these two mermaids, we are given two distinct types of women. Silver, who wants to be human, who wants to belong here and to be loved by this boy. Like, so pure and simple. And then Golden, who loves who she is. She finds power in her fangs. They have these like really creepy teeth. And she sees humans as nothing more than a meal. She's like, we are evolutionarily advanced. You are a meal. You're not. This is just fun, but you actually mean nothing. I have an entire world under there that you don't know about. This is just a pit stop, right, Silver? Right? We're leaving soon? What are you doing? It's like, Silver, you poor thing. She has like this, so there's a scene where she's like in love and she gives like a scale to the boy, and that's like commitment, right? And it reminded me of that children's book I still can't remember the name of, with the
little fish with the rainbow scales.
She kept giving her scales away, and then she ends up no scales. I was like, that's what happens. All those children's books are like, don't share. That's the moral.
But
like
also, you have to share everything.
Yeah, the giving tree, it's just like, don't share, you'll die. No one will appreciate you. And Silver didn't read that book. I was immediately drawn to Golden. I was telling Kat, like, when we were, like, talking to each other during it, like, Golden is where she gets it, man, and I appreciate her being out here doing it. And I never really liked Disney's Little Mermaid particularly at all. I had like this whole, it just like aggravated me that there's this young girl, she's 14 in Disney, who is changing her entire everything and abandoning all the people who love her for this dude who also is super creepy and predatory in Disney, and that like she can't speak, she doesn't know how things work. Like, you should
Why
be
is that attractive?
yeah, like you should be like, okay, we got it. Like you were clearly like a child. Like she is a child, but even still, like even more so a child because she doesn't seem to get like normal things. Why is that attractive to you? You should just be like, I'm a big bro.
Yeah, like
in the
I am
book-
an adult. That
in the s-
seems a lot.
Yeah, in the story I read, the prince is like even worse to her, and he like makes her sleep on the edge of the bed.
Ew.
Yeah, like he treats her like an animal. Anyway, I really hated it. And I had this like argument with my family once in like high school because of the real story where Ariel is sea foam. She becomes sea foam at the end, which is not what you get in the Disney story. And I remember them being like, you're reading too much into it. Like, this is just a Disney story. Like, why are you... Like, it's just a story. Why do you get so upset about it? And I was just like, wow, even then, I had my media analysis classes on. Like, even then I was like, no, wait, hold on. You're not listening to what they're saying about it.
Yeah.
In that Vice article, Agnieszka and the author Berman explained that I was right in my feelings about the sisters. It says, Silver, the older one, it's much more sensitive. She wants to be a human being. Smotsniska, explains, Golden is the opposite. She wants to be a predator, and she wants to be who she already is. A wild girl who would never sacrifice her freedom to win the love of a human man. She is also a proud outsider with no intention of assimilating. Because in that article, and what I'll talk about in a little bit too, is that there is also a representation of like immigration and what it means to not want to assimilate and get rid of where you come from.
Yeah.
For no good reason. Like, why? This is a musical after all, so I want to also touch on some of the amazing tracks before going into more of the film and getting into Spoiler Town, because, like, I want to tell you what happens, and it is a bit of a spoiler, so I'd rather you watch it. But the music is really cool, and just like the film overall, the music is also genre bending. There's like 70s disco to like 80s rock and roll and like haunting siren singing. It's not disorienting like with Repo, the Genetic Opera. It feels natural and performative, like they are in a nightclub after all, so like it, you know, some of it's performed on stage, and then other times we have, like, you know, them walking through the house or, you know, performing outside as well.
Byłaś serca biciem, wiosną, zimą, życiem, wiosną, zimą, życiem, marzeń moich echem, marzeń moich echem, winem, wiatrem, śmiechem, winem, wiatrem, śmiechem.
There's this like opening number where the girls are brought to the mall and are transformed into real girls. Like, we'll give them clothes and we'll like make them do this thing, and it's definitely like the immigrant journey of, you know, doing it. And they have this song, and one of the lyrics is, "The city will tell us what it is we lack," which sounds prettier in Polish. But essentially they're just like, the whole song is like, you're going to tell us how to behave, you're going to tell us what is right and what is wrong and what is expected of us, and then we're going to do it. And then they grow dizzy from performing and assimilating, and like kind of, that's like this
because it's
Kickstarter.
exhausting.
Yeah. My favorite song has Golden walking nude around their like dingy apartment that they share with the other performers, and it's titled "The Housefly Won." And she sings, "I am sad, you're sad, we're all gloomy as hell." It's like this, and I was like, this is the best song ever. Like, it's so true. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sad and you're sad," and it comes back later, like when things are all falling apart too, where you know, it's very like, it is a reprise of "We're all gloomy as hell."
Yeah, like no one here is as
too.
happy.
Yeah, sad.
Wieczorami robię się coraz bardziej głodna, bo ja smutna i ty smutny, on smutny, bo my smutni i wy smutni i oni smutni. Wszyscy smutni jak cholera.
All right, so I'm going to go into spoiler town for the rest of this. So please try to check out the film. We watched it on Apple TV. We had to rent it, or I don't know if you watched that. There,
I watched
Kat.
it on Apple TV as well.
Cool. So it's there. You have to rent it. It's also available on YouTube, I think, too. So definitely worth like $4 for sure. One, to support the artist, but also like you're gonna have a good time. There's a lot of graphic violence and like gore, and there are a lot of times that are uncomfortable. It's a lot, like these girls never wear shirts or bras, and they're very tiny. So it could also make you feel a little uncomfortable because these men
They
are
look
definitely
young,
treating
yeah.
them like they're not 14, but they could very well be 14. Like they're
Yeah.
not, but like, oof, they're very tiny.
Yeah.
So spoiler town, enter. So you can pause, go watch the film, and do this, or you can listen and then still enjoy yourself. So Silver is in love with a boy, and he does seem to care for her too, but he won't be with her. Just flat out. There's a scene where Silver saunters into a bathroom and splashes water on herself to reveal her tail. And he's just like, no, thanks. And she offers, did you want me to be a girl? Like, did you want me to have the legs? And although that wouldn't work because she doesn't have stuff. But he tells her that he'll never see her as more than a fish, an animal. So she does the most logical thing and decides to swap out her tail for real girl legs. So she does the most logical thing and decides to swap out her tail for real girl legs.
As you would, you know.
Areas. Alternately, Golden is living her best life. She's at punk shows and she's eating men who made the mistake of underestimating her, fancying her as a snack for themselves. And then she's in their car, and then next time you see her, she's got a heart in her mouth, and she's just slithering back to the ocean, and she's like, yeah, like what?
Yeah, like, what do you expect?
She finds a fellow sea creature, presumably a merman, named Titan, who is lacking his horns. He says one was taken by a fisherman, the other he removed himself, and he also bears scars on his stomach that hint at a tail removal. And he's like, walking around. He warns Golden that if Silver loses her tail, she'll lose her voice as well, and if her love marries someone else, she will become sea foam. Which this whole time we've been told. In a really jarring and emotional scene that Agnieszka has said is like the most important scene in the whole film, Silver is laying on a bed of ice in a surgical room. Her large tail is spread long, and she looks like the catch of the day. She's a fish. Beside her, in another vat of ice, is a woman who is cut in half.
Yeah.
Like waist, She sings, and Golden is singing with her from home, essentially begging her not to go through with this, and she does. And as she sings, the surgeon cuts her center, blood splurts, and her voice is cut off. Later, she is flirting and showing off her new parts with her bow, only to try it a bit too soon, post-surgery. She, still has staples and stitches and is, currently in rehab trying to learn how to walk. That is not the time to be doing this. You need to take a little bit of time. You're rushing a little too quickly here. Is no bueno. This is literally not the time. It results in a bloody mess that grosses out Mitak, who is the person that she's in love with, and he storms off and immediately into a pleasant woman's arms who is a human and not a mermaid who will bleed on him.
Yeah.
And of course, he marries her.
Yeah.
Agnieszka also explains that the film is a story of immigrants and of the pain of assimilation, confirming Silver decides to become the model immigrant, sacrificing her autonomy, identity, and livelihood to gain acceptance in this new world. But even that isn't enough to make the bass player treat her like a human being. For smushing Smochinska, the parallel to real immigrants' lives is clear. If you assimilate, you can lose yourself, and it will be very destructive to you. Mm-hmm. Super sad. For me, the tale reminded me of Lilith and Eve, which I mentioned in our She Never Dies episode, that, you know, they are two types of women, an Eve and a Lilith. One is obedient, subordinate to men, and the other is a monster, rebellious and independent. Yeah. It's like you have like well-behaved girls that fit into whatever, and the other ones who are dead monsters because they're like, I don't want to do traditional stuff. Yeah. These are Adam from the Bible's first and second wives. Again, watch that episode if you want to learn more about that. I don't think Silver is any less of a woman for loving and falling for Mitiak, but she's just a young girl. She's impressionable and romantic, and I've definitely been there myself. Right? Yeah. Like, I've definitely made some questionable decisions because I thought, you know, that guy is gonna like me or like do the thing, or the person that I was interested was gonna do the thing, right? And that doesn't make you any less of a good woman to do that. It's just a different way to do it, right? So Magic marries this girl, and like the Little Mermaid, Silver is offered one more chance to survive. She must kill him before sunrise, or she will be made into sea foam. It feels obvious what you should choose. After all, he's just a human, and as we often say on our show, humans are trash. Men humans even more so oftentimes. But she doesn't. Instead, she has one last dance with him as the sun rises, leaving Golden to avenge her and return to the sea. It's super sad because she worked so hard. She did so much for this dude who, like, dropped her so quickly, but you knew he was never about it. And they also, like, almost... There's so many red flags. There's, like, a scene where you think that maybe they killed them. They, like... toss them over into the water, and they're like wrapped up in rugs. Like the dude who she supposedly loves, the drummer, and then the lady who's been taking care of them, just right over the side. And then they like come back and they like bite him, but that's it. Like she runs right back into his arms like he didn't do that to her. Girl,
yeah, that was a big red flag. Where
here's
it's
the
just
thing,
like
men don't change. That's like lesson number one, and she learned it really hard. And Golden too, and that like she did try, and you know she warned her like if you take out your tail, you're gonna lose your voice. And Silver's like, if you try to stop me, you'll never see me again. And it's like okay, but convert like on the other side, if you don't try to stop her, you also won't see her again.
Yeah,
but
unfortunately.
How are you supposed to know that, right? They just hoped that.
The guy wouldn't suck.
Yeah. This is the reality in which he is not the worst. And he is, unfortunately. Yeah. Anderson wrote, Christen-Anderson wrote for the ending area of The Little Mermaid, he wrote, her tender feet felt as if they were pierced by daggers, but she did not feel it. Her heart suffered far greater pain. She knew that this was the last evening that she would ever see him for whom she had forsaken her home and family, for whom she had sacrificed her lovely voice and suffered such constant torment, while he knew nothing of all these things. It was the last night that she would breathe the same air with him, or look upon deep waters, or the star fields of the blue sky. A never-ending night, without thought and without dreams, awaited her, who had no soul and could not get one. The merrymaking lasted long after midnight, yet she laughed and danced on, despite the thought of death she carried in her heart. Sad. And then she did. She died, and her sisters were like, do you want to kill him? Because then you can come back. And then she's like, I can't. And then they're like, okay, well, now you can be wind.
Yeah.
That's the best offer I can do for you is your wind now. Super sad. You know, that's pretty much what I have to say. I also think it's like crazy they don't talk about it for Disney, obviously, because it's for kids, but
yeah, she's
like in constant pain because like her like walking on her feet is like walking on knives. Like she's not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, it's not like she feels uncomfortable. She doesn't know.
Yeah. And this dude's just so rude.
The whole concept of The Little Mermaid is really stressful in that like she is a whole child and like, she's like, I'm 16, I'm old enough, so ha. And then the dad's like, sweetie, no, you're not. And like, I have every right to be mad and like keep you from this situation because you're a child and I am an adult. And the whole situation is just wild. Especially like you said, he made her sleep on the side of the bed.
He
like,
slept on the bottom of her bed because he saw her as an animal. In the story, it's like even more absurd that she thought that he would love her.
Yeah.
Because like he really, really didn't care. At least with me, like he did care for her, but he was like he was honest. Like, believe people when they tell you things like about themselves. He was like, you're always going to be an animal. And that's kind of how it is. Like, he tells her that, and then she's like, okay, I'm going to give you this scale and pledge my love to you.
Yeah. No,
like,
that's
what
definitely...
in the Twilight Saga? Like, what are you doing, hon?
And I mean, even the Disney end, it's like, she doesn't have a voice. Like, why is that? It was just a very clear message from Disney that when I was a child, that they didn't want women who spoke. Mm-hmm. So that, like...
I mean, often taking, like, a character's voice is just, like, that often happens to female characters and making them, like, nonverbal. But it's just, like, why does that... It's not even just, like, that we want to take your voice and that you're nonverbal. But, like, she also just didn't understand things. Mm-hmm. Like, she really was, like, very clearly...
A whole child.
Yeah. And even if you're thinking of, like, as an immigrant, like, maybe you don't... Like, maybe to that degree you don't... speak in that you don't speak the same language and that you still like you have to compensate for the fact that you're learning how things operate here, but it's like that's like you still have to be conscious of that and be working to like help. And I feel like Prince whatever Eric or whatever never helped her. He was just like, it's funny she doesn't know stuff and it's cute that she's 14. It's
also like I guess different in that like you lived a life before, like if you're an immigrant, you can lived a life before and are capable of doing like things. You're learning how the world works in the new place, but like you know how to take care of yourself for the most part. Like you know how to do stuff. It's not childlike. It's
Feels
manifestation
less, it's not as like predatory as it is with the Little Mermaid, because I've always been like, she's so young, like it's not cute. Like the songs, great songs, love them.
The songs
classic,
are fun.
You know, but yeah, you know, I don't even blame like Ursula because she's like, why you want to do that?
Yeah, it seems dumb.
You're an idiot, so I'll take advantage of this. Like, she's like, they're gonna take advantage of you too. So
yeah, like why not at this point?
Okay, you're royalty, so we eat the rich.
Eat the rich. So you're gonna go do this now, and I get your soul. Yay, yum. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, for my section today, I had a really bad week, so we're gonna have fun today. I just made an executive decision that I didn't want to be sad this week, and that's what we're doing.
And you have the authority to do that.
Yeah, so we're just going to talk about like what mermaids are and what the lore comes from, and why like they're commonly described as man-eating, which is just like fun. So my fun theory, you know, this isn't based in science, it's just my theory, is that the lore surrounding mermaids commonly supports man-eating in that like men are trash, as in people are trash. So they're generally doing things that would necessitate murdering and eating them. It just seems 100%. Like, you know, they're just doing trash people things and
if you're an outsider, like that makes sense.
Like, why are you all up in my space? Like, I didn't invite you here. Like, what's happening? And they have the audacity to think that they're the best thing of the world, and that's why they get eaten. So, I would argue for that reason, you know. That's why commonly they're man-eating, because men just are just honestly humans just always be like going places they don't need to be going and invading spaces that they don't need to be invading. And then like being like, why mad? So strange a reaction. Like, why would you be upset that I like brought devastation and disease and all other awful things to your place, or like entered your, like you're a manatee in this scenario and they just enter your space and you're like kind of mad about it. You're like, hey, my kids are here, you can't be here. And they're like, I don't get it, why are they mad? Let's murder them.
Manatees don't get mad.
Yeah,
sea
it was,
cows are sweet.
Dugongs were the
Okay.
ones that did the murdering. And bless them. If that's silver and golden, silvers are the manatees and golden is the dugongs that are
Dugongs,
now
yeah.
extinct, which is super sad.
Manatees are almost extinct. That's just a fun fact. I'm from Florida.
Yeah, that is sad. I would also argue, like, since we know so little about the ocean, that like there's a lot of fear that surrounds it, just because we've only explored about like 5% of the ocean, 5 to 10%, that we don't really know what's down there. So like the possibility that mermaids are some variety of sea creature that resembled what we kind of perceive as mermaids could exist. And like, you know, there's lots of areas within the ocean that are filled with darkness and just scary as hell. So I think it's reasonable to us like be like, you can't not
Anything
say
is
mermaids
possible.
exist.
Yeah.
It's possible. It exists.
Yeah,
as a
I love
possibility.
like the imagery of the mermaids where they are like the deep sea ones and they have like the lights on them and they have those like great teeth. They just look like
Yeah.
those creepy fish down there. Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's how I envision mermaids, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we go. But I think there's tons of creatures that exist on this planet that exist outside of our conceivable imaginations because we are one species that exists and has a very small frame of reference. So what is a mermaid? I feel like I've seen so many different interpretations about what mermaids are. And when I imagine them, as Gabe said, I imagine the deep, like from the dark zone. You know what I mean? Like the area that's never seen sunlight. I imagine they're from there, in that they have those giant teeth. They like kind of are bioluminescent, but they're like super scary looking. But according to Royal Museum's Greenwich, what are mermaids and what do they symbolize? A mermaid or a merman is a mythological sea-dwelling creature that often, you know, has the body of a human, like the upper body, head and body of a human, and then like the tail from below the waist of a fish. So stories of mermaids have existed for thousands of years and span cultures across the world, from coastal settlements in Ireland to landlocked Karoo Desert in South Africa. But like, why such obsession with mermaid, you know? Like most things, it stems from human rationalization to understand why horrific things happen. It's much easier to believe in a monster than it is to understand that bad things can happen for no other reason than they were designed to exist that way. Why we do not have gills or fins. Like we don't have the things that would make it possible for us to exist in the ocean. So it is reasonable that the ocean, if we enter it under certain circumstances, would result in our death. So like if we're speaking of like early exploration of the planet, where technology was not where it was, where you can't just like go on a cruise ship for fun. You couldn't like fly. Like ocean travel was like the only route to find different places. They had a very small understanding of what existed in the ocean. So a lot of it revolved around like trying to rationalize what was there and like why people were dying, and most of it just came from not understanding like reefs and like underwater currents and like how the ocean works as a whole. So they would create things that were the cause of that were more like animal based or like anthropomorphic. Somehow humans have to be the biggest predator in the world. So like when we go into the ocean, it's more likely that something bad is going to happen to us because we're not made to be there. And since humankind thinks like they're the most amazing thing that's ever graced this planet, the most powerful creature to ever be imagined, and they claim to have no natural predators, ignoring the fact that the planet is literally alive. The ocean itself is a predator that can kill us. They create monsters to fill in the blanks of things they can't explain. Or monsterize innocent sea mammals, like the manatee or the dugong, or like, you know, just trying to like exist, or even just like whales. Like I think the earliest depictions of krakens were just whale sperm. So yeah, because it like comes out crazy, like it looks crazy, and they like couldn't rationalize what it was. So they're like, okay, that is a sea monster. Like it is attacking us when it was really just whale sperm. And my overall theory is that all these men just needed glasses, like every single one of them, because clearly they just don't even know what's happening. But their mermaids and siren lore exists like across many human cultures and have many different meanings. There are some cultures that use this lore as a way of respecting the ocean, as a tool to build empathy for sea creatures, kind of like how we saw in the seer and the unseen when we talked about that with elves. Like it's a way to create empathy for nature that like creates like the living existence of the planet. And there's many cultures that view the planet as like a living creature, like trees as living creatures, and like put sacred energy towards that. So mermaids have like been used as a way to explain both like the destructive nature of the ocean as well as storms, but can also as a way to just respect the fertility and like life that exists in the ocean that totally exists outside of the scope of our like human understanding.
Yeah, sometimes we have to humanize it so that we give it respect at all.
Yeah, and I think that's like part of where it comes from. It's just like an empathy building tool. Unless you're a Western man from that time period of exploration, then it's just you don't have respect for anything and just really want to have sex with anything that moves. But we'll get into that. Scientists believe that, at least from our Western understandings of mermaids and sometimes sirens, that they're actually more like dugongs or manatees. So since manatees nurse their young above water, similarly to how humans like present in terms of like where the curves are and stuff like that, they seem to be largely confused with the idea of mermaids or sirens. I read a really fun article on Wired titled "Fantastically Wrong: The Murderous, Sometimes Sexy History of the Mermaid" by Matt Simon. And they outlined some of the common mermaid misconceptions, and it was just really fun. They had great energy throughout, like just was really feeling everything they were saying. But according to the article, in mid-16th century, the French naturalist Guillaume Rondelet found two creatures that he compared to monks and bishops. In the Encyclopedia Metropolitana of 1870, they described the supposed sea monk as the face of human, but coarse and clownish, the head smooth without hair, a sort of hood resembling that of a monk covering the shoulders, while its lower parts ended with a spreading tail. The bishop fish was yet more wonderful, being clad by nature with the garb of a bishop. It was taken to the king of Poland, who in his benevolence decreed it be carried back to the ocean and set free. But I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like the description of a manatee. Doesn't have hair. Kind of like rounded head, like human-y features in the middle, and then a tail. So it sounds a lot like a manatee. I think that's what they found, and they were just like, "Look, it's a people fish." The article goes on to discuss that once men had big boats to leave and explore the ocean, thus resulted in many more mermaid sightings. But out at sea, the number of mermaid sightings exploded as the age of discovery kicked off, as men in big, expensive boats made their way around the world. John Smith of Pocahontas' fame caught sight of one in the Newfoundland in 1614, noting that her long green hair imparted her with an original character that was by no means unattractive.
What?
When
He
I
was like, this fish is hot.
That's exactly what it was. That thing had seaweed on its head, and it was like, that's hair, some green hair on this manatee or dugong, or even like a dolphin. Who even knows what he saw? Because manatees don't swim that far north. So he saw a fish with some seaweed on his head and said, "That's a hot fish. I would fuck that fish." Sorry for cursing, but that's what he felt. That's what he thought.
He's like, I wrote, and I'm writing this down so you can't judge me.
Yes. Okay. So I had a really fun conversation with my roommate, Travis. I'm going to cite him for this lovely argument because he said that exactly that is that men are disgusting and they wanted to have sex with everything. So instead of like admitting that the like Christianity or whatever the heck was happening at the time was like against oppressing them in their sexual desires, they're like, I'm gonna make it totally cool that we have sex with animals now, and we're gonna make them mythical, like hot animals. We're gonna write it down so it's not disgusting and weird. Horrible.
Yeah, actually, in the one thing I remember at Mermaids is on the Man Show. That's what it was called, with Jimmy Kimmel. Cool. Back in the day, they had a whole segment about what real manatees were, or what real mermaids were, and it was essentially like that they were manatees or like other, and it was just that manatees are like soft and like kind of human feeling, and so men will be out at sea for X amount of years. Ladies aren't allowed on board because it's bad luck. So they were just like, there's a
And they're like, I can't be gay.
Yeah, that's not allowed. So instead, animals and bestiality or homosexuality, and look what they chose. They reasoned it by making mermaids.
Yep. So that's exactly what happened in my mind. I don't think anyone could ever tell me different, unless they provide an actual mermaid in front of me, in front of my face. I just am going to continue to believe this. The article goes on to note that in 1493, between wanton murdering and genocide, Christopher Columbus claimed to see a mermaid near what is now the Dominican Republic. As Columbus wrote in his diary, the day before, when Admiral was going to Rio de Oro, he said he saw 3 mermaids who came quite high out of the water, but were not as pretty as they were depicted, but somehow in the face looked like men.
That can't escape the homosexuality no matter where they go.
Yep. Simon goes on to explain that the admiral likely saw a manatee, and what Smith saw was anything you could guess, because manatees don't swim that far north. In fact, the myth of mermaids and siren sightings stemmed from dugongs, also known as the sea cow or Cyrenenian, which humans drove to extinction at the beginning of the 19th century. They were very large at 33 feet long and 24,000 pounds. The theory is that since they swam along the former Syrian and Babylonian empires, that they likely inspired the tales of half human, half fish creatures. But yeah, it was definitely 100%. They were like, all right, this fish is hot. We're going to rationalize
I'm lonely. We're
doing
out at
that.
sea. Ladies aren't allowed. I just really need to fuck this fish. So, guys, how can I do? How can I? Poor, like, as if manatees don't have enough to deal with.
Yeah,
and they're so nice. Manatees are so nice. I saw manatees before.
And dugongs were like, I'm not taking that. I'm gonna destroy your boats. You're gonna think I'm a hot fish, and then I'm gonna murder you. And that's what they should have been doing. That's what
maybe
unfortunately
they were mermaids then, because they were eating men.
Yeah. Let them.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, I don't know how murderous dugongs were. I think they were just very large. So if your ship ran into one, it was going to destroy it because it was a very large and strong animal. It was like if you ran into a whale would destroy your ship. Like, that's just what happens.
Like, what are you doing?
I don't know how murderous they were. I don't know if they ate people, but like they definitely, at least just from existing and people just driving their boats into their areas, like got destroyed because they're large. And why not? Yeah, but essentially people are trash. That's what we learned. But it's a more fun version of people are trash in that
they're also weird as hell.
Ridiculous.
Weird as hell. I think this movie is really great. And the music is awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm just like a sucker for any time you have a monstrous femme and it's like an example of puberty and it's very honest about it, because there's also like, they evolve from like being carefree of their bodies and just kind of like whatever, because like animals like wouldn't put as much
clothing
or not clothing, but like they wouldn't put as much like meaning on the nude body or just like on bodies at all that people do. And so like they're just like carefree and doing that, and then at some point it's like there's an acknowledgement of that, and then Golden is like using it. I didn't put it in my scene, but there is a really crazy scene with a police officer who's a woman who is rightfully assuming that Golden murdered this dude. And they end up having this intimate moment, and I read somewhere, and I'm sad that I can't remember where it was, but it was just like that sexual interaction, like that's the one that we see. Mm-hmm. The other ones, like, we don't. That's the one we see, and there's like this like intimacy. There's no hesitation. They're like, just this woman is like, yeah, like you're like, I get it. She's like licking her fins and stuff. So she's also wearing fishnets, like, which was kind of funny. But they have this whole moment, and I I believe that she didn't kill her. Like, I don't think she killed her.
I don't think she did either.
She's just
I
like
don't
gone
remember,
after
honestly.
that. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and that whole scene was very interesting. And one of the most, I was like, what? What's going on here? Which happens a lot in this film. It's a lot of what's going on here.
Well, there's something to be said about like sexuality within that as well, where it's like she feels comfortable, like Golden feels comfortable being herself and being like, if she is queer, like she feels comfortable in that and like doesn't. She's like, all these gross men, don't touch me. I'll murder you. That's fine. But we're not gonna. And then like finds this dope lady who, or I mean, she did accuse her of murder, and I don't know if there was like threat of anything within that. But
she did pull out her gun, but then didn't actually do anything.
Yeah. So it seemed like slightly less negative, and also it's just like her owning herself, her sexuality, like feeling like powerful.
Yeah, and I think like one thing with Golden that I also appreciated was she was very good at setting boundaries. Like throughout the film, she's often like, "No, don't touch me." Like, "Oh, that's too close." Like she's like always like, "Oh, stay away." And Silver's just like, "Where are we going? What are we doing?"
Yeah.
Carefree. And I just really loved. I really loved Golden. Kinga, the actress who plays I can't remember what her character's name is, but she's like the lead lady. She was great. There's like so many cool, just like her, she's like always transformed into whatever role she's playing. Yeah. And it's just like, and I get like, she has a weird relationship with them too, because she's kind of like a mom, but they're also kind of her competition, and they're also creatures. And she's like very aware, because like in the beginning, they come out of the sea and the men are like, ooh, but like she screams. Because they're monsters. Like, so I think it's just like very, very interesting how like you see like these women interacting with them versus like how the men are interacting with them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
It was a cool film though. I highly recommend. Everyone should watch it. Yeah. You'll be confused, but you should watch it.
Yeah. You should definitely watch it. Maybe twice. And like listen to the songs too, because they're like so fun. There's like... They have like is it Donna Summer's I'm in Love or whatever. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love.
Yeah, that one. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was cool. It was beautiful. Lots of sequins. I don't have enough sequins to be a mermaid.
Yeah.
Person.
I don't own any sequins at all in my entire wardrobe.
Yeah. I was like, you can tell we're not burlesque performers because we don't have sequins.
Yeah, we need them, I guess. I don't know. I don't like sequins.
They're like itchy.
Sequins. Yeah.
I do really. There's like a scene where they're like finally like the leading ladies, like this, they're rock stars, and they kind of look like Joan of Arc type style. Yeah. Kind of like Viking style of like their braided hair, and then they have like this makeup on that kind of looks like a mask, and they have like this like sequined outfit, but it looks like they have like shoulder pads that are like, almost like armor. And I was like, okay, I want this jacket. I don't know where I'd wear it, but I want it.
Yeah, I remember when you saw that scene, you're like, this is the cosplay we need to do. But then we ended up still just going like funny mermaid time.
Yeah, but still.
It was a good scene. It was a very good
do it.
Scene in makeup.
Yeah.
I also really liked, just like the Golden like wanted to be on stage like singing, but like herself, like she just wanted to do like rock music or whatever it was. And like wanted to just like kind of sing by herself. She didn't want the whole kind of, I guess the cabaret like felt very like cringy. Everyone was like getting nude. Stripping was an element of it. And like she didn't want to do that so much. So she wanted to have like that other area where she was singing this dope rock music. And
yeah, and also like she didn't want to do it without her sister either.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they're like, you can't sing, so we can't have you lip sync either. So you're not going to be here. And she's like, no, well, I'm also not going to be here.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here.
Like, you do not understand how little you mean to me. Yeah. Like, I do not care about you. This is literally the only person I care about. And she's been changing herself for you, trash. That's it. Without her, there's nothing keeping y'all alive.
Yeah, she would have murdered them a while ago.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, like, honestly, that she murders the guy at the end. Because, like, as she should.
Yeah.
As she should.
It was, like, sad, you know? But it's also, like, Yeah, and then she just slithers back into the sea, and she's so distraught. And now it's like she just has to go on and live without her sister. Like, she's going to be alone for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also like that element of like sacrifice that exists where it's like Silver wasn't telling him. He knew that she removed her tail for him. So like that part. But like I know in like the original story where it's like she's doing all this like very sacrificey things to appease this guy who is rude.
Yeah. But she can't communicate with him to tell him I'm doing this.
That's true.
In this, she didn't.
It's just more so don't change yourself is more so.
Yeah. Don't change yourself for men.
Yeah.
But yeah, she also doesn't tell him like I'm going to turn into foam. So to some extent, he's innocent, but at the same time, like she did a drastic altercations very clearly for you, and you just abandon her.
Yeah,
but he's also very young,
yeah.
So probably doesn't understand the ramifications of his actions either.
Yeah, I think ultimately the lesson is don't do that. Like don't. Change who you are, like entirely.
Don't
like I understand
other people to change
the level of needing to do somewhat for survival. Like obviously, like that sucks and that shouldn't exist, but that is a thing. When you can, like, don't fall in love with some crappy person who's not going to treat you like you're a person.
And like unless it's for like making yourself better. Yeah, but like...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
But she's not doing that. She's just changing who she is foundationally. Like, she was fine.
Yeah.
She wasn't eating people. She never ate people, and she couldn't. So, honestly, she's fine. So go watch it. Go listen to it. Stay tuned for what we have coming up next month. It's going to be fun. And you'll get married.
Delete your kids. Yeah. If they're mermaids, you know.
Yeah.
Or they literally...
Maybe your mermaid kids will eat them.
Yeah. It seems like a dope alternative. People are trash. Let them.
Yeah.